Good evening everyone, and welcome to another video in relation to the Getting to the Heart of It All series for ASX Traders United. This is Stephen Haas presenting this for you all. Now, there's been a lot of queries in relation to this particular topic, and I thought I'd cover this in relation to this particular series. And firstly, right from the get-go, I will actually say I do apologise in terms of sound quality for this. I am working on this in terms of getting a new microphone and equalizer all set up for this. So hopefully this will be the last particular video with this particular sound quality issue. So please do bear with me for that. Now, in relation to this particular topic, I've received a lot of messages, private messages in particular, saying, what do you think about ZIP? What's the situation with this? What is this about this head and shoulders pattern? I don't understand what's going on with this. Could you please explain this? Sure, more than happy to. So that's why I thought I'd do this, and it's a bit timely in terms of exactly what's going on with ZIP at this point in time as well too. So I thought I'd take a few spare moments in relation to creating this particular video here in relation to this. So this is the pattern for ZIP at the moment, and it has got a lot of people scratching their heads wondering exactly what's going on. So thought I'd at least take you through this all step by step so you can have a look at this. And there was a post about all of this as well, and Tom, one of our other members as well, has actually expressed his point of view about this as well too. So we'll go through all of that, and I'll show you exactly where on our site this discussion was all about as well too, a little bit later on in this particular presentation. But firstly, what is a head and shoulders pattern? Well, taking a look at this particular pattern overall and this particular chart, it's very, very easy to see what is meant by the head and shoulders pattern. Well, firstly, from this, you'll see where the head is. That's the head. Pretty easy to see. In terms of the shoulder, there's the left shoulder. And we've also got the right shoulder. Now, remember, any of this discussion as well is not financial advice in relation to what could potentially happen in relation to ZIP for the future. If you are a holder of ZIP, I am not a holder of ZIP personally, but basically, you would need to take a look at this in terms of your own financial situation and see what you would like to do in relation to this in terms of your holding. If you do have your holding, also have a word with any financial advisor that you do have, of course, and there is a disclaimer at the end of this video as well. But that is essentially what your head and shoulder formation is looking like. You have the head at the top and the two shoulders on the side in terms of technical analysis. There is also another component called the neckline. Now, both Tom and I looked at the neckline itself. I know personally I actually established the neckline myself at the 584 line, so I'm going to draw it in the 584. People would have different areas to look at in terms of where they feel as though the neckline may be. I personally felt it was a 584 for one particular reason, and that was this particular candle here. As you can see from the top of the actual screen there, the close was 584 at that point there, and it didn't go any lower when it actually went down to that particular point. Well, it actually went down low on that day, but it closed at 584 that day. You can zoom in there so you can actually see that. So if we zoom in on that particular candle, you can see right there, closed at 584 after trading as low as $5.56 on that day, and then going back up to 584 to close. And we'll zoom back out. And that is the pattern that you're seeing there. So you have the number of components. You have the head, the shoulders on the sides, as well as the neckline. Now, in recent times, even on some of the discussions on different boards as well, I'd actually mentioned as well too that the actual neckline had been broken, and that was the particular point here on the 2nd of November. The neckline had been broken at this particular point here, which expresses caution. Once a neckline does get broken overall, you need to be really thinking, okay, well, what is this stock going to do? And once the neckline does get broken, that is exactly the point where you need to be thinking that way. So it got broken, but it actually did come back up and test everything again. And it tested successfully at that particular point. But what did it do afterwards? It fell back down, tested, went back up again, came back down, tested again, and then after that, gone back up, tested, and now what's it doing at this particular point in time? It's come back down at the end of this week, has actually closed again beneath that neckline, which is expressing caution. So it's very, very interesting exactly what is going on with this stock in terms of what could potentially happen in the future. It could go back up and test this again, and then if it actually fails from the bottom, that would be quite bearish for this particular stock. So it's very, very, very intriguing what could potentially happen for the future. Now, is 584 where the neckline should be? That could be judged differently by different technical analysts. You might also think it may actually be about the $6 mark, really, in terms of where this actually went up to, and that could actually be what the real support level could be as well, based on where that actually opened at that particular point in time on the 3rd of June. As you can see from the top of that actual candlestick there, looking at the data at the top there, the open was $6 on that day. So that could actually be $6 rather than $5.84. Either way, could be semantics really when we're thinking about it, because it's actually still closed well below that point, even at the end of closing trade on Friday. So either way, it will be really intriguing to see what does happen from this point onwards. Some people also say, well, okay, look, it's closed on Friday at $5.59, but it hasn't closed below where this wick was actually closed in terms of $5.56. Could that be important? From a technical perspective, some technical traders will say that could be important. I'd rather have a solid base to work on in terms of where the markets themselves close directly. And really, when we take a look at it overall, I'm going to enlarge this a little bit more so you can really see the real solid support, solid close of anything really that's happened is probably here. And that's solid close here on that particular day was $5.65. So really, when you look at it, Friday's close was $5.59, so that's actually lower than that particular close there. So really, we have closed below that previous solid close at $5.65. Is that showing a potential even more of a bearish situation? It could be. It really depends on how this particular stock reacts to this support level here to see what the situation will be for the future. Okay, now, there's a bit more of a teaser, I suppose, in terms of the real situation. Let's have a look at some of the technical indicators, and that might give us a bit more clues as well. Okay, now this is where things can get a little bit more technical overall, but you can have a look at the numbers themselves and see what the situation is. I'm going to remove these daily averages, but as you can see, these daily averages here, these lines are on a decline, and I'll enlarge it so you can really see it. But that's one thing. The red line here is the 30-day moving average. That's declining. The blue line is the 10-day moving average. That's declining. So they're both declining, and the share price is trading below that. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind there in itself too. Next thing to look at. This here, this line here is what they call the ADX line. So it's the strength of the actual overall trend. It's very low at the moment. You can see the line, you can see the data in the box on the left-hand side. It's the 5th data point down below under the gap. So you've got open, high, low, close, volume, open interest, and then you've got MA1, 2, plus DI, minus DI, and ADX. And the ADX, the numbers there as I move across, are going slightly up, but very, 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 very low themselves. It's only 8.63. Now you really want higher values in terms of trend overall, looking above 20 at least to get some decent form of trend, and it is extremely low at this point, basically trendless. So really it's not forming any trend whatsoever at this point in time. That actually might be the thing that saves this stock. The fact that it is trendless, it might actually just be bobbing up and down. That's pretty much about it. Volume you can see down below here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that DMI indicator so you can see the volume a little bit clearer. The volume here, as I'm pointing out, is pretty much smack bang on the average. So volume is, let's have a look, 13 million compared to the moving average of about 11 million. So it's pretty much on the average overall there. Let's get rid of that indicator as well for clarity's sake. And this is the relative strength here, and the red line being below that blue line is basically showing lower relative strength compared to the overall market. Other indicators of interest. Okay, oscillator shows general trend overall there. It's starting to turn downwards, so that's a momentum indicator. So that's going downwards there. MACD is another momentum indicator. That's turning downwards as well, as you can see there too. Advanced decline line, that's definitely going downwards. So basically money is flowing out of the stock at this point in time. Shaken money flow is another momentum indicator as well as to how the money's flowing in and out of the stock. That's starting to decline as well, so it's flowing out of the stock as well. Ichimoku is an interesting one in terms of a technical indicator there as well. Now, the numbers to really keep an eye on there with this one here are what they call the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen. The Tenkan Sen on the left-hand side of the box is actually declining as we go through, and really declining on the Friday, as you can really see there. So going down to 5.94 from Wednesday being 6.19. So it's really declining. That's showing an overall bearish tendency right there. Relative strength comparison, as you can see, very low compared to the general market. And that's what that's the comparison in terms of what they mean to the relative strength comparison. It's a comparison to the overall market. So compared to the overall market, it is really falling apart. On balance volume is basically a comparison between the bulls and the bears. When it's declining, it's basically taking a look at how the bears themselves are comparing to the bulls. So the bears are in control. When it's actually increasing, the bulls are generally in control. So that's actually a declining value there. So that's literally showing that the bears are more in control in itself there. And then there's also the Bollinger Bands as well. And it's tending to actually go more towards the downward slide there in itself there. So it's actually more towards a bearish tendency overall there. But they can actually snap backwards, up more towards the middle. I'll actually get rid of the simple moving average in the middle so you can see that. So you've got the top of the Bollinger Band, the middle of the Bollinger Band, and the base of the Bollinger Band. And they can snap back towards the middle of the Bollinger Band. But anything in the lower half of the Bollinger Band is generally negative territory. Anything in the upper Bollinger Band is generally going upwards overall. That's the general thought. But usually things that fail, like as you can see here, it tested the middle of the Bollinger Band, but it failed and went through, tried to get back up above it, and then just fell to pieces there. Tried to get back up here and tested that Bollinger Band there, and then it failed. This one here, it actually succeeded there, but then it failed again. So that's usually the way that can go with the Bollinger Band aspects there too. So just thought I'd give a little bit of insight in terms of what could be happening there with ZIP. There's been a lot of questions being asked in relation to that. Head and shoulder patterns are usually quite powerful in relation to giving predictions. That is one of the biggest things there as well. And if we go across to the Facebook page, we will see, actually I'll close that off quickly and then we'll flip back to the Facebook page. This was discussed back on the 31st of October. There was a watch list discussion in relation to just the general overall week itself. And then ZIP came up as part of my watch list in particular. And if we scroll down through there, I was basically mentioning the momentum was picking up in the downward direction at that point in time. And I gave some of those figures as to where the left shoulder was, the head and the right shoulder, and where the neckline was, and looking for a fall or a retest of that particular neckline and giving the range calculation. So I can show what that was as well. So the range calculation is basically $10.64 minus the 584. How did that come about? Look where the head is. So you go to the top there. You can see at the top of the screen there, the high is $10.64. So that was the top there. And the range being the neckline of 584. So we'll put the neckline back in again. Oops, wrong selection there. 584. So you can see what that is there. Okay, so simply 1064, 584. Bring up our calculator. 1064. Yes. Yep. Minus 584 is a range of $4.80. So we take away $4.80 from 584. And basically the target in itself there would be $1.04. And I think Neville was the one who said, well, $1.04 for the actual target there. It's an extreme target. But that was a target that I personally calculated as a potential target for zip should the neckline fail and it actually goes back up, tests it, and then goes back down, or it just shoots right through. So that would be around about down to here, down to about $1.04. Interestingly, when you take a look at it, what's the low back here? $1.05. So it would basically be testing back to the lows of March 2020. That's the projection. So that is a possibility should everything fall to pieces, and that could be what it would be based on the head and shoulders pattern, and that could be the situation. The alternative hypothesis presented by Tom during that particular discussion was a little bit more conservative, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone has their own different ways of being able to look at things. His target was about $3.50, and the way that that was particularly calculated was looking at the lower shoulder, and lower shoulder there is $7.88, and taking that and projecting that from the neckline. So $7.88, taking that from $5.84 is about $2.04. So take that away from $5.84 is about $3.80. $3.50 was the target that that Tom had actually put through. So there's a couple of different ways of being able to do that. So $3.80 would take it back to, let's have a look. $3.80 would take it back to probably about the low of this, $3.86. Yeah, so probably about this region here. 380, yeah, about the high of here. So it would basically fill the gap here when you think about it. So that's also a realistic projection there as well, should the head and shoulders formation fail. Quite intriguing. Interesting to see where this actually does pan out. What could you do with this if you wanted to trade this in particular? Well, if you are a holder, now remember this is not financial advice, but if you are a holder of ZIP, overall what you could potentially do is ensure you are no longer a holder if that was the case, and you could potentially buy it back at the lower value of where you feel as though it would actually be finding its support. Alternatively, you could also use CFDs as well in terms of shorting ZIP as well. That is another opportunity should you wish to be able to take advantage of that, feeling as though that, okay, it's found its resistance at this particular point around about the $5.84, $6 mark. As another way of being able to deal with that as a potential way of looking at that as well too. So there's different ways of being able to manage this situation should that be something that is of interest to you. Obviously, once again, not financial advice, but it's one way of being able to look at that. But that is a potential way of being able to handle the situation. And ZIP being actually one of the, I think, ASX 200 or ASX 300 stocks would be highly up there on CFD lists of quite a lot of providers. So you would be able to actually get access to that should that be something you wish to trade in that fashion. So there are ways of being able to manage that. Or alternatively, if you feel as though, yes, I really want to get ZIP at a cheaper price, then you could potentially get ZIP at a cheaper price should this actually go lower in that fashion as well. How low will it go? Well, it depends on how low the market really is feeling, as though I'm getting a general sense on the boards that sentiment is really starting to decline quite a lot. A lot of people are getting pretty sick and tired of the stock, I must admit. So they're just getting fed up the fact that it's not going anywhere, and you can really see that especially over the last, probably from around about here, really, when you think about it, and that's the end of October. So the last month and a week has really been quite, painstaking for a lot of ZIP holders when you think about it there. But you can see the power of the head and shoulders pattern when you think about it as well, because also on top of it, you can project ranges. So if you know the range that you're expecting, that range also applies should that shoulder be beaten. So you could apply that range added onto here should that shoulder be beaten. That's the other way of looking at this as well. So you can add that range to the top of the shoulder, and then you have a projected target as well. So this is the way you can actually trade these kind of patterns when they actually deal with. So that's just a rundown about what head and shoulders patterns is all about. I hope that's helped. On top of that as well, just to at least show what the situation is with other buy now, pay laters. That's Sezzle. Does it look like a very similar kind of head and shoulders pattern? Maybe. It's been discussed on a few boards as well recently. That's it. That's Sezzle. Potentially left shoulder, potentially the head, potentially the right shoulder. Not as clean, but it's potential. Then there's also split it. Definitely not as clean, but this is your left shoulder potentially. That's your head, and that's potentially your right shoulder. Definitely not as clean, but you can also, when you think about it, draw a neckline around about there. So there's scope. There is definitely scope amongst all of these kind of things there, but it's a matter of being able to look at these kind of patterns that do pop up on charts every now and then and see if there's ways of being able to actually look at this in an objective manner. And if you can see a pattern, then chances are hundreds, if not thousands of other people can also see the pattern there too, especially even if it's just a matter of taking a look at support and resistance levels to be able to actually work with that. If you haven't seen the other YouTube video that we actually have in relation to support and resistance, I'll put a tag up there in here on this particular video. You can actually have a look at that as well there too, one of the cards. I'll put that up at the top of this particular video. So have a look at those as well and see if that actually helps in terms of just getting an idea in relation to support and resistance too. Okay, so I'll leave that video here for you now. And by all means, feel free to add any comments here as well, and I'll be sure to address them for you as well too. And if there's anything else I can assist with, feel free to let me know. Other than that, thank you very much for your time. It's been great sharing this extra time with you here on a Sunday, and look forward to being able to chat with you further on the forum. I'll catch up with you over there. Bye for now.